Okay, next up is Chris McLaren, who is with the PHMSA state programs, and he is, according to Jeff Weiss anyway, one of their integrity management specialists. That's why he drew the short straw on this presentation today. There you go.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm Chris McLaren, and I'm really glad that Ivan went through quite a bit of the gas transmission safety study information, because it makes my presentation go a little bit smoother, as I've included that discussion at the very end. And what I wanted to talk about today was management systems and continuous improvement. And management systems have been talked about quite a bit, I guess, the last couple of years, and as well as we've touched the subject of safety management systems here. But management systems are a framework of policy, processes, and procedures used to ensure that that an organization can fulfill all tasks required to achieve its objectives. And integrity management is a management system. In fact, PHMSA has been experimenting with and then putting into regulation and implementing those regulations with risk management systems for over 20 years. So we're all about the self-improvement process that management systems force us to go through. Safety management systems use the acronym PDCA in them, and that's Plan, Do, Check, Act, or where we would plan our work, do the work, evaluate or check the performance of our work, and then adjust or act accordingly upon those results. More typically, what I grew up using and was trained in, and what I think gives a better communicates better what we're going through, is the ADDIE model, where we analyze the problem, we then design a solution for that problem and develop it. We then implement it and evaluate the performance of what we've implemented. Now, from that evaluation, we now go back and reanalyze the issue based on what we've learned. And so we're in a continuous improvement cycle. And that's what PHMSA sought to do with risk management programs since very early. In fact, we started with the risk management demonstration project and the systems integrity project, and then in the 2000s we implemented the hazardous liquid and then the gas transmission integrity management rules. Recently, or 2010 and 11, somewhere in there, we implemented the distribution IM program and some hazardous liquid gathering integrity management requirements also. So we've now got the whole cadre of integrity management programs up and running. Now, we've continuously sought to evaluate our performance on these, both through PHMSA is a team-based organization, and our teams of inspectors are grouped together based on whether it's gas transmission IM, hazardous liquid IM, and we bring back all the lessons learned, typically on an annual basis or through quarterly calls, and bring that back into a team and understand what we're seeing on the inspection and front and what our concerns are. You may see a lot of those reactions in the frequently asked questions that you'll see on our website. So you can look at the ways we're trying to continuously look to adjust and communicate our expectations about the integrity management rule. We also use the data, and we've seen a lot of data, and of course I've got some data in my presentation, and data can go any number of ways depending on what we're looking at, but certainly we utilize our incident and accident data as a feedback, and also our enforcement history on what we're seeing from our enforcement on what we need to react to, whether that's communicating with stakeholders in public, communicating with the industry groups, like there are subcommittees on integrity management within the hazardous liquid and IM and gas transmission world, that we can discuss issues that we're seeing crop up on a continual basis with, to try to make sure course adjustments are being made on the industry level, and that they have awareness of issues that we may have. In the bigger sense, we then have to use the rulemaking process to affect that change in a documented manner. And so in the late 2000s, we started implementing some of these some of these inspection observations and other issues we were having, and we started writing on them in the late 2000s, coming out in 2010 with the hazardous liquid advanced notice of proposed rulemaking, and in 2011 that same document for gas transmission. Now, the other part that has come along with these are the improvements, such as Ivan noted, that geospatial information systems, or GIS systems, where we can graphically layer data, layer information, as well as other data models and data acquisition tools. There's been a lot of industry improvement that have allowed pipeline operators to be able to implement their work in a more technologically efficient manner. And so the integrity management rules need to be updated to reflect these technological developments, as well as to address the issues we've seen on inspections and enforcement and in accidents and incidents. So finally now, in October, we were able to get the hazardous liquid IM rule out, and from the information on the left, where you can check, on the bottom, where you can check for yourself, you can see the link which you can go to review significant rulemakings in DOT. And from the October report, it showed that we were going to have the gas transmission IM notice of proposed rulemaking out November 12th. Of course, that hasn't occurred, so it will be updated, but I left that in there since I sent Carl this a couple of weeks ago, as well as the fact that just showing that it's imminently coming and that we are anticipating its publication soon and working diligently to make that happen. Now, a lot of management systems show the DuPont-Bradley curve. There's also, this curve is also in the safety management systems recommended practice by API 1173, and it'll show more of on the y-axis or vertical axis incident rates or risk, and then on the x-axis or horizontal axis, it'll show more of time or implementation. But the intent is that as we work through and continuously improve, we move from a reactive, high-risk environment where we have implemented behaviors and processes and procedures that have continued to improve, that make us more proactive on addressing risk, and therefore we have a much lower risk incident, risk, et cetera. And you can see up top it talks about some of these behavioral modifications where we're talking about achieving compliance to a minimum prescribed set of safety standards, such as what we have in Part 192 for gas and 195 for liquid, and moving towards a proactive safety culture where we're choosing to do the right thing beyond just mere compliance. And that's what a lot of the management systems and the team-based structures seek to do. Of course, as we get out far to the right, we're working in teams where data is not siloed within certain parts of the organization, but moved horizontally across organizations and whatnot. Now, of course, I promised I'd have some data slides, which we've all seen. Here we see improvements when we look at serious incidents, but our significant incident is flat. Now, this is, as has been discussed, it's always important to describe data in a number of ways. Is this data going to be per mile? Because in this time, like the last 10 years, we've seen 70,000 miles of new transmission, 200,000 miles of new distribution put in the ground. There's been some that has been abandoned or retired, but that's a lot of new construction, a lot of new mileage coming in. And so when you're looking at things, you always need to account for what is the rate, or somehow normalize that per mile. You also need to look at, when you're looking at hazardous liquid, look at facilities. Is that a right-of-way spill where it's out there with the public, or is it a facility spill contained on the property? Similarly, with gas, it is not that extreme in terms of the facility versus the right-of-way. But there's a lot of ways to look at information, and I think some of the other ways you can look at cause data. And these are all ways that we look at it. I think the discussion about that came up earlier about trying to make it such that an individual could evaluate information through the tool to see what they wanted to see. I think that's that would be a very nice thing, and hopefully we can get there someday. Now, in the NTSB report, here was the curve that they provided in the gas IM safety study, showing that following the implementation of the gas transmission integrity management regulation, that the rate of incidents started to decrease, and that's a positive of significant incidents, and that's a positive sign. Of course, we want more. We realize there are more. That's why we started taking actions. You know, to produce an advance notice of proposed rulemaking, you have to start writing it a couple of years beforehand. So in the 2007 to 2009 timeframe, following the implementation of hazardous liquid in the gas transmission, we started identifying these issues, started developing our advance notice for change. So we have been active in seeking to make improvements and continue getting these trends down. Along with those actions that I just discussed, we also have some tasks that have been pulled out of them that are external, such as the valve installation and minimum rupture detection standards. That was a study required by the last law from Congress that is put out on its own. We've transmitted safety advisory bulletins on program evaluations and the use of meaningful metrics, further expounding upon our expectations of operators of what they need to be doing within the currently approved regulations. The integrity verification process is one about verifying that the pipe in the ground is what it is with adequate records and testing. That was just announced within the hazardous liquid rule. It's not in the hazardous liquid IM rule. It's going to be external, but I think the natural gas transmission IM rule will have that IVP process in it, hopefully. We've also gone through, there's a public meeting, I think, started yesterday on the MPMS data gathering enhancements that are for the data. This is a lot of the things that Ivan was talking about, where we got excess flow valves on in gas distribution systems on residences other than single-family dwellings and in small businesses. We also had a risk modeling workshop recently, and out of that has come a risk modeling work group, which will have stakeholders from all forms, probably about 25 total individuals from all our stakeholders, and that'll cover a series of the safety recommendations that Ivan's talking about. For the gas transmission, but it'll also cover it for liquid, for those areas that we identify that we have need to produce further guidance. And there's a variety of ways that guidance is then utilized. It can be utilized to support development of industry standards. Surely it goes into supporting our inspection tools and inspector training. So I'd just like to end with, that was shown earlier about by Jeff about the management system, safety management systems public meeting that we had that's available on YouTube. You can see a day and a half's worth of meeting in about 6 hours and skipping through all the interim parts, and it is 4 to 6 hours incredibly well spent. I've watched a series of these and lived management systems for quite a while, and they are effective in reducing risk and improving integrity, improving throughput, reliability, other efficiency models that operators see for maintaining the profitability of their pipeline. Integrity management as a management system is a continuous improvement process, and we look to continuously improve the rule, and we have certainly embraced the comments from Ivan and Nathan Doble in their work. And we were acting on several of them at the time, and we have formed work groups and sought to act on all of the recommendations in rapid order. Within the state program's recommendations, certainly we've already taken actions to modify our state programs, guidelines, and documents to include mentoring and on-the-job training for state inspectors and improve the state-to-state OJT, on-the-job training experiences that they can have on operators that they share across state borders, as well as participating on federal inspections. We've always participated with state on federal inspections when we had assets that were going to be covered under an integrity management program during the same inspection. But we needed to formalize that and try to move towards invitational travel to support our state partners and the constrained resource environment they find themselves in quite often. Within the mapping and GIS, it's going to be difficult to mandate geospatial information system, but the reality is that most operators out there utilize it because it makes business sense, and while using integrity management as a reason to get it into their operations, it has made their businesses more efficient and effective, and even down to mid-size and smaller distribution operators have geospatial information systems, even though they may be cloud-based and less robust than larger operators. We've also moved on that mapping piece to go beyond the NTSB recommendations to include a wide breadth of required fields to be gathered from pipeline operators to improve the mapping program, which is open to the public in a public viewing forum, and so we look for improvements there. On the high consequence areas and the threat interactions and threat eliminations, we are looking for work groups to develop information that we can then put into guidance and our inspection tools, both our inspector guidance, the inspection protocols or questions that we use, etc. The work group that is going to be formed for risk modeling in the coming weeks, and with its first meeting to discuss that, is going to cover the threat interactions and the risk assessment piece quite extensively, and I think that that's really where we are going to look for some guidance, especially on threat elimination and threat interaction. I mean, those are two difficult points during an inspection to determine when a threat is of a significant or of an insignificant percentage in the operator's operating environment that they can discount addressing it, because you can't address every threat with every inspection method, but when does a threat rise to a point where I must address it, and what are some criteria, because that value is going to move. When does an unknown become so significant that I can no longer assume that I'm not going to address that unknown material? The qualification of personnel performing IM tasks, we are looking within all of the pieces of that, and looking to, at first, develop an advisory bulletin to further communicate to industry our expectations within 192.915 A, B, and C. And that would cover also those individuals implementing preventive and mitigative measures, not just installing the actual components, but implementing that decision to look at preventive and mitigative measures. Within our reporting requirements, as you saw, I kind of went through that rather quickly, and there were actually 4 of them up there. We've already implemented some of those through our data forms. They were kind of happening at the same time that the report was issued. But other ones involve looking at data in different ways to understand, when threats are coming about, to be able to be more proactive and looking for those leading indicators. And we'll see how fast and how far we can get there. I think we've all discussed the problems with data gathering and data triaging. The required use of inline inspections on all pipelines is something that we are looking at through the notice of proposed rulemakings, through looking at ECDA and whether it is a viable sole assessment method and things like that. And I think we'll have some more information on that as we go through the month or two. So thank you again for all your participation in pipeline safety, and we all make a difference.